Under normal conditions, I think catching the fish in this lake will be like shooting them in a barrel. But because of this cold front, I'm really just trying to figure out a way, you know, if I can get them to come up on something. There he is. That one come up out of the grass and got it. You know, I really fish this bait one of two ways. This is the Savage Gear 4-play. It's a 4-jointed, basically a flat-sided body bait. And you look at it in the water, on just a straight reel, it's got a real natural, real tight swimming action. It looks a lot like a herring. I've had a lot of success with this bait on herring lakes. But I can also fish this bait like a shallow water jerkbait. Because of the way it's built, it'll give itself a directions change when you twitch it on a slack line. So it's a good big profile bait that you can fish a couple different ways. I can cover water with it, fishing it real fast just on a straight retrieve, or I can throw it out and fish it slower like a twitch bait. It's really not a suspending bait, it's really more like a slow sinker, but it sinks so slow that I can kind of control the depth on it just with my cadence and how fast and how often that I twitch it. You know, the reason I chose this bait is because just like a jerk bait, you know, what makes a jerk bait so good in cold water is that you can impart action on the bait without moving at great distance. And it's almost like you're toning them or teasing them or whatever you want to consider it. But you keep it there long enough with just a little subtle action, and eventually you'll gain the interest of one and they'll slide up there and get it. Well, that's what I'm doing with this bait. I'm fishing it much like I would fish a jerk bait. I'm fishing it real slow. I'm keeping it right on the outside edge of that hydrilla and just twitch, twitch, pause, twitch, twitch, pause. And just like a jerk bait, when I twitch this bait, it gets a direction change, it gets a kick. The one thing that's different about this bait versus a jerk bait is this is a jointed bait. So every time I twitch this bait, you've got these body segments that are actually touching each other. So you're getting a little bit of a tick sound, you're getting a little bit of a rattle sound out of the bait. Kind of unique. It doesn't sound like any other baits that are out there. It's not just a steel ball bouncing around inside of a piece of plastic. You know, this bait doesn't have as much of a rolling action as the jerk bait has. It has a similar action, but still a little different in the fact that it's got more of just a nose turning left to right. You know, a jerkbait doesn't do that because of the bill. You know, the bill on a jerkbait is what gives the bait its action, but it also causes the bait a restriction. So see, this bait's clean nosed, just like a glide bait would be. So when you jerk it, you just get an instant head turn out of it. You know, you get that real quick, sharp left to right, but the bait's not coming forward a tremendous amount. It's kind of staying in place, and that's what makes it similar to a jerkbait. The other way I'll fish this bait, if fish are a little more aggressive, is I'll reel this bait at just a slow, steady speed, and then I'll kill it. And when I kill it, it'll glide off. It's fishing it just like a glide bait. And oftentimes I'll twitch it, and then I'll start reeling it again, and then I'll kill it. And I always twitch it before I start back reeling it, because so many times when you're winding that bait, there'll be a fish following it. And when you stop it, that fish will stop and pause right behind that bait. So when I twitch that bait, it almost makes that bait 360 around backwards. And if there's a fish there, oftentimes that final twitch will trigger that fish into biting. There's one. He got it. You know, this is just simply a bait for when I'm fishing that type of cover, but I want a different profile. That's when I'm going to fish this bait, you know, with the twitch and pause retrieve. The other way I'll fish this bait is just speed reeling it. I just, you know, but that's the warmer time of the year. So if you want to talk about that, you can look at this bait right here and see how it kind of waits on the surface. So like on a lake where you have like a herring population and the herring spawn is going on and you got real clear water, I'll fish this bait just like this. And I'm just throwing it over those areas where those herring are spawning and just getting, you know, the fish that are up there set up to ambush those herring to just run over there and eat it. That's typically going to be in the warmer months of the year. In the warmer months of the year, I'm going to fish the bait at just a constant fast retrieve typically. Sometimes I will also fish it on a straight retrieve in the wintertime, but I'm going to fish it much slower. Like I might count it down. Like I might throw it out there and count it down to where I feel like it's, you know, a certain depth under the surface, and then just begin a real slow progressive retrieve. There's one, just like that. That's a good one too. But the 4-play will definitely catch them. And I mean, she got a mouthful of it. And that's a perfect specimen. That's just a big, pretty pre-spawn wintertime fish that you would typically expect to catch on a jerkbait. So basically, I mean, I'm just I'm fishing this bait just like I would a jerk bait in the colder months of the year. And I mean, you can see the results. Big, pretty spawn female. Doesn't get much funner than that. So as far as gear is concerned with a bait like the 4Play, the setup I'm using, I really like to throw this bait on fluorocarbon line. This is 15-pound test, high seas 100% fluorocarbon. I like the fluorocarbon line because this is a bait that I'm typically going to fish with in clear water. This is not a bait choice for super stained water conditions, so I'm going to typically go with the fluorocarbon line. This is the same rod I would throw a jerkbait or a crankbait with from TFO, Timber Fork Outfitters. It's a 7-foot, that's a 704, which is a 4-power 7-foot rod. This is a Tactical Elite, and the Savage Gear Finesse reel. And I mean, that's pretty much all you need. That pretty much is gonna cover it. No matter how I'm gonna fish the bait, speed-wise or anything like that, I'm typically gonna always use this rod and reel and line combo. The only thing else I will tell you, if you wanna get the bait down, put you some bigger split rings on the bait. It'll add weight. You can also go up to either another size and hook treble, or just use a heavier gauge treble. But if you change one, you got to change them both, because if you change just the one in the front, you're going to put the bait out of balance. If you change just the one in the back, you're going to put the bait out of balance. So whatever you do to one, make sure you do to the other, so you'll maintain that perfect levelness in the water, and you can adjust it and kind of customize it however you like.